I worked night shifts at my high school during senior year. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid better than fast food. 3 nights a week, I was the kid pushing a mop down empty hallways while everyone else was at football games or parties. It sounds easy until you've been inside a school that late. During the day, it's noise and movement everywhere. At night, it's like the building has a heartbeat of its own. The silence is heavy. You hear things you never notice when it's full of people. The buzzing of lights, pipes knocking in the walls, the faint squeak of your shoes carrying way farther than they should. The science wing was always my least favorite. The halls were narrower, the doors had big glass windows, and every room smelled like bleach and old metal. Kids used to say it was haunted, but every school has stories like that. I never believed them, at least not at first. One Friday, a little after 9, I was mopping outside the chemistry labs. I had no music because my headphones had died, so I could hear everything: the bucket wheels rolling, the mop squeaking, and my own breathing. That's when I noticed something through one of the classroom windows. Inside, by the teacher's desk, someone was standing, perfectly still. I froze, thinking maybe a teacher had come back for something. I unlocked the door, flipped on the light, and nothing. Every chair tucked in, every stool in place. The room was empty. I told myself I was imagining things. But 10 minutes later, I heard footsteps, slow, deliberate, right in my hallway. "Hello?" I called. The steps stopped instantly. I started pushing my bucket toward the stairwell, trying to act calm. And that's when a voice spoke, right behind me, close enough that I felt the air of it. "Why are you still here?" It was a woman's voice. Not angry, almost casual. I spun around so fast the mop handle smacked the floor. Nobody was there. I left everything and went straight to the security office. The guard on duty, Phil, was a grumpy old guy who lived on vending machine Doritos. I told him someone was in the science wing and begged him to check the cameras. He sighed, rewound the feed, and leaned in with me over the monitor. At first, the hallway was empty. Then, for maybe 3 seconds, there she was. A woman in a long dark coat, standing dead center in the frame, staring at the camera. Her face was blurry, but the eyes reflected the light. Then she was gone. Phil replayed it twice, then cleared his throat and muttered, "Glitch." "Happens." He told me to finish up. The next week, I tried to rearrange my route so I wouldn't end in the science wing, but no matter what, I always seemed to. One night, I was emptying trash in the prep room between labs. I'd propped the door open with a wedge. While I was bent over the bin, the door clicked shut. The wedge was on the floor, like it had been pushed out of the way. From the hallway, I heard it again. That same voice, calm but sharp. "Young man." I left the trash where it was and walked out the other door without looking back. The next night, it was worse. As I passed one of the locked labs, I heard a chair dragging slowly across tile. Then the faint clink of glass, like someone had tapped beakers together. I started to unlock the door, then froze. Before I could move, the voice whispered through the wood, "You shouldn't be here." That was enough. I backed away, left the mop behind, and didn't return until Phil walked with me. A few days later, while putting away supplies in the main office closet, a binder slid off the shelf. Inside were old PTA flyers, newsletters, and one memorial bulletin. "In loving memory of Eleanor Weiss, laboratory assistant, 1978 to 2003, passed peacefully in her classroom." there was a grainy photo of a small woman in a dark coat. I shut the binder quick and put it back. I didn't want to think about it, but the name stuck in my head. That Friday, I brought my charger so I could play music while I worked. I thought if I filled the silence, I'd be fine. But the moment I entered the science wing, my phone shut off. Full battery, then nothing. I worked quickly, avoiding the windows. But halfway through the second lab, the wedge at the door slid across the floor by itself. The door eased shut, soft but final. Then, on the tile, I saw footprints appear. Damp, bare feet, one after the other, walking from the teacher's desk toward me. Oh, too small to be a man's, too fresh to be old. I whispered, "Ms. Weiss," like saying her name might calm her. The answer came from inches away, right at my ear. "Why are you still here?" The door opened by itself, just a crack, like she was letting me leave. I didn't waste the chance. I walked out, down the hall, down the stairs, and straight out to my car. The next day, I left my keys on my boss's desk and told him I couldn't do nights anymore. He thought I was being dramatic, but I didn't care. I'd seen her twice, heard her more than that, and I knew if I stayed, one night she wouldn't let me leave. Everyone remembers substitutes for being clueless or letting us slack. Mrs. Allen is the only one I'll never forget, because I don't think she was supposed to be there. She showed up on a gray Monday morning, late October, the kind of day where the buses smell like wet coats and the whole school feels tired. When I walked into English class, she was already at the chalkboard. She looked maybe late 60s, short gray hair, big round glasses, neat cardigan. She wrote in this calm, perfect handwriting you don't see anymore. What struck me wasn't her appearance. It was how she called names. She never touched the attendance sheet. She looked up, scanned the class, and called on each of us like she already knew who we were. "Aaron," she said to me, first try, like she'd known me for years. We spent the period reading All Quiet on the Western Front. She didn't sit down once. She walked the aisles with her hands folded, and if someone whispered, she'd murmur eyes down, without even looking at them. She wasn't harsh, but there was something about her presence that made everyone obey. At the end of class, I hung back to ask about rewriting an essay. Before I even spoke, she said, "Cut your third paragraph. It wanders. Bring it to me Wednesday." I froze. She couldn't have read it, but she smiled like she knew me better than I knew myself. Then she added, "See you tonight." I laughed nervously. "Tomorrow, you mean?" Her smile never changed. "Tonight." That night, at exactly 11:08, someone tapped on my bedroom window. Just 2 short knocks. The problem was, I live on the 2nd floor. I pulled back the curtain, and there she was, Mrs. Allen. Fog glasses, faint smile, her face inches from the glass. I stumbled back, yelling for my dad. By the time he ran outside, the driveway was empty. He told me I'd been dreaming, but I hadn't even been asleep. The next day, our regular teacher was back. I asked him about Mrs. Allen. He looked confused. "What sub?" I never called out. At lunch, I asked my classmates. Half said they remembered her clearly, half swore they didn't know who I was talking about. That shook me the most. How could only some of us remember? That evening, around 10:45, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. The text said, "Aaron, I'm outside. I shut off the lights, sat frozen in bed, and watched the driveway through my blinds. For nearly 20 minutes, I saw nothing. Then, out of the corner of my eye, in the reflection of my closet mirror, I thought I saw someone standing behind me. A cardigan, round glasses. When I whipped around, the room was empty. I blocked the number. But the next night another one texted me. "Class isn't over." I begged my parents to believe me. My mom said maybe it was a prank, some older kid messing with me. But how would anyone know the essay comment she gave me? The text stopped after a week. I never saw her face again. But years later, when I was clearing out an old box in the attic, I found one of my notebooks from that semester. Inside, on a random page, in handwriting I didn't recognize, were 3 words written in neat cursive. "See you tonight." Football was everything in my town. Every Friday night, the whole community crowded into the stadium. The marching band, the cheerleaders, the announcer shouting over the PA. It was the only real excitement in our boring place. When you're under those stadium lights with a hot dog in one hand and the crowd roaring, you almost forget how small and empty the town really is. But the strangest part of those nights wasn't the game itself. No, it was when it ended. When the lights started shutting off, the crowd drifted to the parking lot and the stadium went silent. That's when you realized how massive and empty the place felt without people. One night, after a late-season game, me and my 3 closest friends, Jake, Ryan, and Marcus, decided to hang back. We didn't feel like going home, so we climbed to the top row of the bleachers with our sodas and snacks, talking about nothing. The last of the crowd filtered out, car engines starting in the lot. Then the lights overhead clicked off one by one until only the moon lit the grass below. That's when Ryan spotted him. "Yo, do you see that guy?" he whispered. Down at the far end of the bleachers, half in shadow, a tall figure stood motionless. Long coat, maybe 6.5 feet tall. His face was hard to make out from the distance, but his posture, straight, stiff, felt wrong. "Probably a parent," Marcus said, though his voice cracked. Jake cupped his hands and called out, "Yo, you good?" The man didn't answer, didn't move. We laughed nervously, tossing around theories. Maybe he was a teacher waiting for his kid, maybe a janitor. But as the minutes passed, it became harder to ignore how still he was. Then, when we glanced away for just a moment, we saw him again, closer. Now he was standing by the chain-link fence at field level, directly across from us. "No way he walked that fast," Ryan muttered. "We would have heard him." We all went quiet. Another 5 minutes. We joked to cover our nerves, but the laughter died when we looked down again. He wasn't at the fence anymore. He was by the concession stand, just standing in the moonlight, angled toward us. Marcus whispered, "That's it. I'm done." We grabbed our bags and started down the bleachers. Every step clanged louder than it should have, echoing in the empty stadium. As we crossed the track, I glanced over my shoulder and froze. He was standing in the middle of the field, perfectly centered, not moving, not speaking, just facing us. Jake muttered, "Nope," and we ran for his car. We piled in, slammed the doors, and Jake floored it out of the lot. My hands were shaking so bad I dropped my soda all over the floor. Nobody spoke until we hit the main road. Then my phone buzzed, a text from a blocked number. My stomach dropped when I saw the photo. It was Jake's car, parked in his driveway. "Who has your number?" Ryan demanded. But I didn't answer because I couldn't. Later that night, around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Another photo, this time of my house, taken from across the street. I didn't sleep. I sat by the window with a baseball bat in my lap, scanning every shadow. The next morning, I showed my friends. They thought maybe someone at the game had followed us. But who? And how would they know our addresses? Over the next week, rumors spread. Other kids said they saw a tall man by the fence at practice. Coaches told them to knock it off. One kid claimed he saw the man in the parking lot after rehearsal. But when he blinked, the guy was gone. The fear started eating at us. We sat together at lunch whispering about him like little kids, making pacts never to walk home alone. But paranoia has a way of following you. One night, Marcus texted the group chat in all caps. "He's outside my house." He sent a blurry picture through his blinds, tall silhouette at the edge of the yard. By the time his dad stormed outside, the lawn was empty. A month passed. We stopped talking about it out loud, but we were all waiting for him to come back. And then he did. I was at college by then, a couple towns away. Finals week, pulling an all-nighter. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Another blocked number. Another photo. It was my car. Same angle as the one from Jake's driveway. Only this time, the picture wasn't taken in my hometown. It was my college dorm parking lot.